What is good people? You are now listening to another episode of Since We Last Spoke with Danny Foxworth. I am your humble narrator, Danny Foxworth, and this one, rolling solo this time. And this is going to be a special episode, so to speak. The good brother 12 Kyle, which, if you're not listening to the 12 Kyle podcast, what are you doing? Get familiar. He had an episode a while back where he talked about where he came from. And I always thought that was a really, really cool concept and a real dope theme with that. And I figured I would try my hand at that as well, just to give you all a little inside baseball of where I'm from and how I became the person that I am and how that community shaped me. So, for those of y'all that don't know or don't follow 12 Kyle, he is from Florence, South Carolina. And the main highway in Florence, South Carolina is Highway 52. If you take Highway 52 east for about an hour and 20 minutes, you're going to pass through Lake City, South Carolina. You're going to pass through King Street, South Carolina. You're going to pass through St. Stephen. And the next town that you hit will be my hometown, Moncks Corner, South Carolina. And when I get asked where I'm from, it's always an interesting response. Because a lot of white people, when they ask me where I'm from, and I tell them I'm from Moncks Corner, a lot of times their next response is going to be, how far is that from Myrtle Beach? Whereas with black folks, even local black folks, when they ask me where I'm from, and I tell them I'm from Moncks Corner, South Carolina, without fail, the follow-up response is, yo, oh, shit, yo, you know Charlamagne? Every single time. But to answer both questions, Myrtle Beach is about 2 hours from me, and I do know Charlamagne. I went to high school with him, and yeah, he's doing all right. He back then he was just little Larry with the big fro that was always in ISS, and now he's making a name for himself. But that's another story for another day. And also, another notable person from the town of Moncks Corner is, so some of y'all may know if you're in the church, is Pastor Stephen Frederick. He's the pastor of Elevation Church in Charlotte, North Carolina. Interesting tidbit. He and I were actually best friends growing up. Like, we spent weekends at each other's houses and stuff. But again, that's another story for another day. Moncks Corner. It's just a little small town. Well, growing up, the population was probably about, I'll say 40, maybe 4,500 to 5,000 people. I think the latest census population tally that I saw was in 2021. It says Moncks Corner's population is 13,688. It's the county seat of Berkeley County, which happens to be the biggest county in the state of South Carolina. One high school, everybody knew each other. One of the big gathering places was McDonald's. That was like McDonald's. You could almost put that as the capital of Moncks Corner. Seriously, like after high school football games, even the people from the neighboring towns, like from Cross and from St. Stephen, every Friday night, whenever the football games were over, everybody and their mom flocked to that McDonald's parking lot. And it was a lot of good times back then. And we had a Hardee's. And those were, as far as fast food goes, those were the two mainstays for a while. And I remember, gosh, it might have been 87 when we got a Burger King. And that line, open the night of Burger King, that line was literally wrapped around the building and probably a mile and a half down the road. It was bananas. And I'll tell you some other big restaurant, well, not big restaurant, but other local restaurants that were very popular amongst Corner. We had Branton's Red Robin, which was probably my favorite. I used to go there all the time as a kid, and I would get my requisite cherry sundae, which is basically was just vanilla ice cream with a shitload of cherries in the cup. And I would get the chicken tenders with the French fries. Had to make sure I had extra honey mustard to go with it. And then we had the Dock Restaurant, which is a seafood place, which was literally on the dock of the Tailrace Canal, which is a river that basically runs through Moncks Corner and bleeds into the Cooper River. And I remember going there all the time to eat seafood, me and the fam. And back then, when you ordered a Coca-Cola, they actually would serve the Coca-Cola in the glass bottles, which I thought was really cool. And excuse me, the other big time restaurant in Moncks Corner was a restaurant called Howard's Restaurant, which is right by the railroad tracks. And we used to go there all the time for breakfast. That's what their bread and butter is. And they always got bonus points for me because they always carried the Roddenberry's Cane Patch syrup. That is the best syrup on the planet. I don't even think they make that anymore, which is a shame. Back then, there was actually a movie theater in Moncks Corner. It was the Swamp Fox Drive-In. This was like way back in it might have closed, I want to say mid-'80s. I remember, if memory serves me correct, we went there to see the first Superman movie. And I don't have a great memory of, like a very vivid memory of it. I just remember, because I was like 4 or 5 years old, but I do remember going to that drive-in and thinking it was super cool that we didn't have to drive all the way to Charleston to see a movie. And Moncks Corner is also comprised of several different neighborhoods. I mean, you had Cordsville, you had Murraysville, Haynesville, Santee Circle, Mitten Lane, Wall Street, Perry Hill, man, Highway 17A, Highway 6, Whitesville. Man, if I forgot your neighborhood, forgive them, blame my head and not my heart. But if you follow me on social media, you know that the neighborhood that I claim is Longridge. Now, Longridge is super, especially back then, it was super rural. I mean, to the point where cable wasn't available in our neighborhood because the cable company, which is the only cable company in Moncks Corner, so they basically had a monopoly on everything, was called Home Telephone. And the cable didn't get into our neighborhood until literally the late 90s. There would be a guy in the neighborhood that would go door to door every single year with a petition, and he would have everybody sign that piece of paper and take it to Home Telephone so they can bring some cable to us. And also, we were so rural that we didn't even have street names at that time. It literally was basically just a generic set of numbers. For instance, once we got street names, the main road in Longridge is called Longridge Road. But as far as mailing addresses, like our particular mailing address back then was Route 1, Box 2655, which is the most Little House on the Prairie sounding shit ever. And we eventually got street names. It was Longridge Road is the main road, and then you got Maceo Road and Queenie Road were the main arteries in Longridge. Queenie Road was actually named after my great-grandmother Queenie, who was a pillar in the community. And she's probably the only she is the only great-grandparent that I remember being around while I was still alive, while she was still alive. And I remember going to her house and just always playing in her kitchen, and I would crawl under her sink and play with her pots and pans. And I just remember her being a very, very, very sweet lady. She passed away when I was 6 years old, but I still have vivid memories of going to visit her. And as how it is sometimes what's common in a lot of Black communities is you have the candy ladies. I don't know if y'all have them in y'all's, or if y'all grew up, whatever neighborhood you grew up in, whether or not y'all had the candy lady. I actually think we had, well, yeah, we had two candy ladies actually. It was Miss Lizzie and Miss Bessie, who we called Money. And they always held us down in the summertime. Miss Lizzie, we would me and some of my homies, we would go to the church that was right up the street, was Canaan Christian Church, for the summer feeding program. But before we went to the church, we would walk to her house and just get nothing but we get pixie sticks. We would get the Little Debbie Star Crunch, and we would get blow pops. And by the time we walked to the church, we were already on our sugar rush. And man, I miss those times. And then Miss Money, she actually in the summertime, she also had the pixie sticks, but unlike Miss Lizzie, she also would cook like French fries and hamburgers. And unbeknownst to me, I got my crash course in building credit with Money, because you didn't have to always have money whenever you ordered what you wanted to get from her. So I would get fries, I'll get my pixie sticks, and I would get a hot dog, and she would cook the fries just right on the spot. And she was like, I'll just put it on, I'll just bill you for it and put it on your tab. And then as long as you pay me in full by the end of the week, we're good. And she just instilling the concept of credit in me when I was, gosh, I might have been 8 or 9 years old at the time. But yeah, I miss her. She lived in a trailer in this dirt road that was pretty much across the street from my house. And I used to go over there and play with her son Poot every day. And we'd act like we were WWE wrestlers. And I'll never forget, I was thinking I was Lex Luger, and I put him in the torture rack one day, and I guess he had just finished eating his lunch, and I put him in the torture rack, which basically I just put him over, carried him over my shoulder, and just rocking with him, just like rocking while he was standing on my shoulders. And all of that food, he threw everything up and it just fell splattered all over my shirt. That was a rough day. But another thing I love about Longridge is just the community. Everybody knew each other, or everybody knows each other. I mean, it was, especially growing up, it was pretty much everybody was in a 2-parent household, and everybody looked out for each other. If you got in trouble with one family, or you got in trouble with if you got in trouble with one family, they would notify your parents, and then it was just double trouble. But I miss those days. I wouldn't trade those days for the world. Going to Lee Williams' house, shoot hoops with him, and going to Corey Williamson's house, God rest his soul, and playing catch with him, and playing baseball out, and coming to my house to play baseball, thinking we were King Griffey Jr. Man, times were simple. And we actually had a legit store in Longridge called Bill's Store. Well, it was really called Harold's Grocery, but every Sunday evening, my parents and me and my sister, we would walk there, probably about a 20-minute walk, and mom and dad would get their pig's feet, and I would get my, oh God, believe me and my fat, I really had it bad for pixie sticks, but I would get my pixie sticks, and I think my sister would get pixie sticks too. And I remember when we were walking back, and mom let me take a bite of the pickled pig's feet that she had, and that vinegar punched me straight in the face. I took one bite and I threw up all over myself. It was bad. But again, I wouldn't trade that for the world. Longridge made me who I am. I think my laid back demeanor really came from just living a slow life in the country. That really was the catalyst as to how I maneuver. And I also love the fact that it was in relative close proximity to other cities. Like if I wanted to venture out and just dip my toe in the city life for a day or for the weekend, again, Charleston was a half hour away. Columbia's Columbia's an hour and a half away. Savannah's 2 hours. Charlotte's 3 hours. I can 45 minutes from the beach, 3 hours from the mountains. So everything is pretty within relative close proximity. But whenever I'm ready to leave the city, I always got Longridge welcoming me back with open arms. And just like the good brother Most Def said, I've been to plenty of places in my life and time. And regardless where home is, son, home is mine. And that's going to do it for this episode of Since We Last Spoke. Make sure you like, download, and subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm at Danny Foxworth 843. You can find all of the video versions of all my episodes for Since We Last Spoke and my baseball podcast at the plate. And make sure y'all tune in. And until next time, y'all be good. Peace.